And through all this, I'm going to be talking through, this is one of the hardest sermons I've kind of wrestled with since I've been coming here. It took me a long time to kind of get to the place I was at, and I was even working on it this morning at 5. I was like, I just don't know. And my wife, he kind of got me going and said, we have to get going. We have to go. And I'm like, I'm just not ready. I'm not, But I'm just letting the Lord take it from where it's at. So we're going to look from John chapter 8, verses 1 through 11. And it's Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives. And but early the next morning, he was back again at the temple. A crowd soon gathered, and he sat down and taught them. As he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. And then they put her in front of the crowd. Teacher, they said to Jesus, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say? They were trying to trip him into saying something they could use against him. But Jesus stooped down and he wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and he said, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. Then he stooped down again and he wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? No, Lord, she said. And Jesus said, neither do I. Go and sin no more. This story is indicative of Jesus' love for us. We all come into the world as sinners. We all have that in us. We're all sinners. And these Pharisees were not trying to bring this woman to justice, because if they really wanted justice, they would have brought the man and the woman, because it was adultery, so that takes two. And in Leviticus 20:10, I believe it says that the man and the woman would both be stoned if caught in adultery. But they just brought the woman because they were trying, it was all about trying to discredit Jesus. So the teachers and the Pharisees and the church people of the day weren't about the law, weren't about justice. They were about discredit. They were about trying to trick up Jesus. The elders in the church, and all the people underneath that have looked up to for all these years for their religious guidelines, their religious ways, are the ones trying to trick up the Messiah. And so as I go through, and what I find interesting is that I always think of the woman in this case, because I think about how she was probably dragged from the situation, because if she was caught in the act, then they had to have been close. They probably drug her out of the bed, half-dressed. She had to be scared, drugged through the town, thrown in front of all these people, standing there, unsure, knowing what the law says, that in a matter of moments she's going to be stoned to death. because that's what the law says. She knows this. So she's standing there in front of this person that she may not know exactly who he is yet. Awaiting the outcome, in her mind is death. And these accusers yelling at Jesus. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Look at her. She was caught in this sin. She was caught in this sin. Do you ever feel like that? Do you ever feel like you're walking around in your life and people are looking at you going, I know what you've done. Look at the sin that you have. Look at the sin in your life. I know where you were last weekend. I know what you do. Do you ever feel like there's these eyes on you all the time? I know in my life when I was younger that I always felt like, being a pastor's kid, like I felt like all the time there's these people just, especially from the church, all these church eyes were watching me. Like they're going to run back and tell my dad or tell the council or tell all these other church members, oh, I think I saw him over there at that bar. He was over there. Yeah, I was having dinner. Or he was over there at this place. Yeah, trying to disrupt, corrupt, and create friction in the church. And it wasn't from the outsiders, it was from the church. And that's what was happening here. And when we talk about unity, and this prayer was apropos for this, we talk about unity when we discuss this about all the gossip that happens here. I'm not saying here, I'm just saying in the church. But that is what takes place, where all these eyes are everywhere trying to find out, well, I don't know if this person should be doing that type of ministry. I saw them over at this place the other day, or doing this. I'm not sure. We got to be careful. I think it's in, I don't know if you can get to it, Matthew. It's down the ways a little bit. I'm kind of jumping around for you. Matthew 7:15 says, do not judge others, and you will not be judged. For you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by you will be judged. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite. First get rid of the log in your own eye. Then you will see enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. Too often we're too busy looking around to find out what's wrong with somebody else. That we don't do, even what Mary was praying about up here, we don't spend that time, praying to God, getting alone and just saying, God, what can I do for me? What is in me that I need to get rid of? What is in me that I need to churn out? What is in my soul, in my spirit that is just not sitting right? Because who knows how long this woman and John, who knows how long she's been having this adulterous relationships? Who knows how long she's been doing that stuff? And it was thrown out into the open, and she was in front of the Messiah, being accused. And they wanted an answer from Jesus. And I don't know about you, but when people are yelling at me, asking for answers, I tend to react sometimes. It's not necessarily the best solution. My mouth goes a little quicker sometimes in my brain. And so I need to slow that down a little bit. But Jesus took the best response. He didn't say a word. It was almost like this slow motion. He's took a pause. He bent down. Who knows? He said he drew in the sand, wrote. No one knows really what he did. Could have made a doodle. Who knows? But he just took some time Which who knows that if you ever do that to somebody, where it's kind of like you're like, ignore them, it just makes them even angrier. And so like they got even angrier, and so they yelled, like, we need an answer. We need it now. And so he's finally like, all right. Stands up. All right. So whichever one of you have not sinned, go ahead, throw first. Do it. Whichever one of you have not sinned, throw first. It's one of those statements, where you had a mic, it'd be like a mic drop. I feel like he could have had a mic, he would have mic dropped, and he just would have walked away. Like, I'm out, Whichever one of you sin, just throw first. And it says the oldest walked out first because they got it. They understood. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get down to the... And so they walked, one by one, they slipped away. And they walked out. And what's interesting is like before this time, I always read it where everyone left and it was just a woman and Jesus. But this time I read it that they were still in the middle of the crowd. I don't know how I read it before. Maybe there's different translations where it's like they were alone. But this time I still read it where the crowd was there. So like all the people he was still teaching were still there. And it was him and the woman and the crowd. So I find that interesting. So he gave this example where he's like, he didn't deny her sin. Like he didn't like just say, cover it up. He's like, he acknowledged that she sinned. Sometimes people think that when you let something go or you love someone despite what they're doing or you just forgive them or whatever, that you're just saying, okay, their sin's fine, it's okay, you're absolving of it. No. You acknowledge the sin. Like it's like he acknowledged that she's a sinner. But he's like, I'm not condemning you for that. But you got to go and just don't sin anymore. Change your life. Go and sin no more, And that's the difference, because he's like, and that's where we need to come in. We're like, we want to attack the sin. And I think that's one of our biggest, we want to go after it. Well, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this. And we attack the sin, which then is associated with the sinner, which then creates their identity. And so then they start to take that on. Well, that's who I am then. Because that's what they keep telling me. And it's like, no, I just know you're a sinner. Just don't do that anymore. I'm not condemning you. I'm not putting that on you. I forgive you. Now go, sin no more. And let's move on. Let's step into what I have for you. As a church, that's what we need to be doing. Our lives are spent too much time, and again, I'm not necessarily talking about this church, but a lot of churches that have been in and out of spend too much time looking around trying to find faults in people. When we really need to just embrace and love them and guide them towards who Jesus is. And if we can do that, he's going to change them. I mean, if you look all through the New Testament, Jesus ate with tax collectors, sinners, all these people, drunkards. He sat and ate and was with them, and they changed their lives. He changed the world that way. I think it says in Luke, do I have Luke there? Yeah, if you pull that one up. Luke 5:31 says, Jesus answered them, healthy people don't need a doctor. Sick people do. And it's not our job to go around and try to make people sick, because that's who they were, or that's what they've done, or that's what we think they should still be, because they're trying to step out of it, but that's who we know them from. And so, well, that's what they used to be doing. Okay, but it looks like they're trying to get away from that, right? So let's embrace the progress. People aren't going to be perfect. That's okay. We talk about this church being empty a little bit. We talk about it not being filled. You want this church to be full, embrace the imperfection. That's where it grows. That's where it grows. But if we want people to walk in, and then after several weeks hit a standard that we set up, and then if they haven't, we get after them for it, then we're going to lose them. We have to embrace the imperfection. And I don't know, and all of us have things in our life maybe that, when I was younger, there's sins in our life that we kind of carry around with us that have become weights, heavy burdens, things we don't talk about, things we don't like to share, things we don't want to. But they weigh us down. And I feel like there needs to be an opportunity for you not to have a conversation with the Lord about that. Were you able to do that song that I asked for, the Who You Say I Am? Nope. Okay, that's fine. Can you play something? Yeah. We're going to play something, I don't know, sometime. I love this. See, this is what it's all about. This is great. But the weight of the sin that you're carrying, and you may not know it, or you may think you don't know it, you may think you got rid of it, whatever, but it's plaguing you.
This portable wall.
And the portable wall thing may be plaguing you. But it's okay. I just feel like we need to take a moment. And as this song plays, you need to find a place to find it and give this to God.